Mostly unconventional ideas, which is kind of the mindset I always try to be in, is like, how can I think about things differently?
Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Los, and today we are talking with Brian Evans. Just like in every other show, we're not actually gonna get started with your hero story and what you did. The odds are that, as everyone pretty much, he started with little money, grew something, and now it's big. So we're gonna talk today about what's happening today in his life, in his business, how he's running his business, and we're gonna talk about influencers, influencer marketing, the state of influencers in general, and what is coming up, and things that you might be able to take advantage of as an influencer or a content creator. What's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good.
It'd be funny if you had someone say, actually, no, I didn't start without little. I started out, I inherited $1 billion, and I now only have $1 million.
Yeah, dude.
Wait.
I've never even heard that story, right? Like, people are like, oh, yeah, I was rich and now I'm richer. Like, it's always like,
Yeah.
something sucked.
Yeah.
I had to change.
Tough.
And I had a tough, coming up, and now I made it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I hate to like make everyone else's story the same, but we all, no one starts with like, yeah, dude, I was super successful. I was modeling.
Yeah. I was killing it.
I had 7 girlfriends and 3 Lambos, and then like things just got better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. But how you been?
Good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, just different phase, kind of like just switching gears in a lot of ways.
So for everybody who doesn't know, even though this is actually probably going to be on your actual platform, tell everybody a little bit of what you're doing today and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I still have Influencive. It's kind of consistently been growing. So it's a big platform with influencers and entrepreneurs and business people kind of sharing mostly unconventional ideas, which is kind of the mindset I always try to be in, is like, how can I think about things differently? So I wanted to create a different type of outlet that wasn't just giving the same type of advice, like, okay, here's how to do this, here's how to do this. It was a little bit different. So that's going really well. I have a new company that I'm involved with called ShipChain. It's a blockchain platform for the freight and logistics industry. So it improves the technology and reduces costs for freight and logistics companies. So working on that. So that's kind of the new big thing that I've been working on.
That's kind of like where you're excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
heavily
it's like a new industry. It kind of it's parallel with the crypto space a little bit. So it's kind of exciting times and new technology that we get to play with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're kind of shifting the way that the industry works, right? Because I mean, the freights and logistics shipping is.
Oh, it's an old industry.
Your dad's dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's got to be hard, and trying to put that whole thing together, I'm sure, is just like hard. Because I mean, I can, when I talk to older people, I mean, I'm barely getting them to install an app.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
That's gotta be hard.
Oh, the adoption, the curve for that is tricky, because especially in the freight industry, literally just recently they were using paper logs. If I'm a driver and I'm delivering something to you, I'm like, hey, can you sign my paper log? And like, they're not even using technology, period. So to go from paper logs and tracking on paper to technology, period, is difficult, let alone blockchain. It's like, people are like, what's blockchain? What's cryptocurrency? I've had somebody literally ask me if Ethereum was a virus, and I said no, but so yeah, it's definitely a new way of thinking for a lot of these people.
So you've always kind of been in the forefront of things, right? I mean, you started Influencive how long ago?
It's been 4 years now. Yeah, at least 4.5.
Influencer marketing was a thing, but it wasn't what it is now, right?
Yeah,
so
it was just starting.
Yeah, now you're getting into ShipChain, which is like blockchain is still like it's super new,
just
right?
Getting there,
like, so you're always on the forefront of things. Where do you see kind of like where we are today with the state of the industry, so to speak, of influencers, influencer marketing, and that whole thing? What is it that you've seen? Because you talk with thousands of people that write for you, and just overall how you've grown that company. Like, you have all the connections, right? So you're really tied into what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, like, before you could just say I'm an influencer or something like that, and it was like this broad term, and I think now it's like, okay, we're all influencers. Like, so you have to kind of be more specialized now. So I think we're seeing, instead of just these generic broad, and there still will definitely be them, but less like generic influencers that just like a Jake Paul, who's not generic. I didn't mean it like that, but he's kind of has a broad audience. But you'll have more specific ones that'll be in like the blockchain space or crypto space or MMA or something really specific. And I think that's the shift that's happening now. Is like, it's not just generic influencers anymore. it's more specialties. And I think also that just goes with being more unconventional. It's like, and I always think like this myself, if I see everybody doing this, I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna look at that. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna go this way.
Yeah.
So just finding a way to just not do what the crowd's doing, because it's like, inevitably that's gonna become saturated, and unless you're literally the best in the world, it's gonna be harder than finding like getting in front of the next curve rather than just jumping into something that's been going for 4 years.
Yeah.
You know?
If you had to kind of like help guide up and coming people, I guess we would call them influencers, but if you had to help kind of like guide them and shift, like help them with some shifts that you've seen changing or that are changing, what do you think the top 2 would be?
I think the first thing is finding a way to make it feel like you're cheating the system. Because for me, I'd always, like, Twitter was a good one for me. I've got more followers there than anywhere, and you find a way to, and it's hard with the existing platform. So it's almost like a new platform or a newer platform.
Yeah.
It's like they've got an algorithm, there's a specific, point in their algorithm where you can capitalize and get a bunch of followers and really work that. Whereas like Instagram now, it's like the common thing we're hearing today is like, oh, I can't grow my followers on Instagram. It's hard because everyone's doing it. The algorithms have become really tight. It's hard to, get ranked on certain pages and things like that. Whereas I'm always looking for like, okay, how can I find like a new platform that's got the traffic, that's not quite super saturated yet, that it feels like I'm literally cheating the system, where I'm doing something that and I don't mean literally cheating. I mean finding
what Facebook pages were.
Exactly.
What
Find
Instagram was at the beginning.
Yeah. Like there was a good one on Facebook for a while that you could put up an image, you could even boost the image, and then you'd get, let's say, 10,000 people like this image. You could then go back, click on the people that like the image, and then invite them to like your page. So it was like this little hack that worked. I think it still works to a limited capacity, but there was things, I would always look for things like that it feels like, okay, this feels like I'm cheating the system. And capitalize as long as you can. It only lasts a month or something, but then find the next thing.
I think one of the other newer hacks, I guess, is you don't have to be a huge influencer, but if you start a group on Facebook, you build the influence, right?
For sure.
I think the word influencer kind of it went from, like you said, right, it's massive to like, oh wow, like you're an influencer to I mean, I can have 100 people and be making $1 million a year, and to a degree all came from influence, right? So I think it's finding those little things. Like we have a group that we started working on in Facebook, and we have 60,000 people that all they're all in love with like health and fitness and stuff like that, and that the engagement on there beats million people Facebook pages, right? So it's really finding where the engagement is, where you can have the conversation, and how you can lead that. As you're moving in with Influencive and seeing, and you do a lot of brand deals, you work with a lot of brands and stuff like that. How have you seen like influencers or brands start to work with influencers in that kind of dynamic move?
I've seen a shift recently. A company just asked me to, it's an auto manufacturer, and they wanted to, it's an agency involved, but they wanted to do like a campaign where I drive this car around. They researched me heavily, and they like found some video I did, and they're like, this is what we want the tone to be like, and it was very specific. And I remember years ago, it'd be like, they would just find some dude with a ton of followers and just take a picture, and we'll just blast it out 100 times and just turn and burn kind of thing. And I've noticed like a shift from like realizing it's not just find the biggest following account you can, but find something that's, like you were saying, for engagement. And you'll see, it's crazy. You'll see somebody with 150,000 followers that gets more real engagement than somebody with 2 million sometimes. Not always, but it can happen. And sometimes they have that more die-hard, true fan kind of audience that you're like, these are die-hard, real fans, like a Tim Ferriss kind of audience that like just anything he talks about, they're buying, eating up, versus like some generic, like funny guy account that's like, they sort of engage, but not really.
Yeah, so this is something that I talk about and all the people that we help with and consulting and coaching and the whole thing, right? Like you can build a huge account, kind of what you were saying with like Jake and Logan Paul. But they built their account off being pranksters. Essentially, they're actors. Like everyone thinks like, oh, they're acting. I mean, even Jake has said it in a few videos, right? Like, hey, this is like the persona I put on when I'm doing these videos, right? So they're acting, they're doing their thing. When it comes to other influencers kind of trying to do that, they try to be too general, and they get nothing, right?
Exactly.
They're just doing the beautiful picture pose and the this and the that. And it almost feels like you lose your influence if you get too big. You have to stay pretty grounded, and you have to have something that you actually want to be about, right? A lot of these people, and I've met a ton, and I'm sure you've met a ton, that are like just gorgeous. They're gorgeous guys or they're gorgeous girls, and like it's worked out for them for a long time. And then you're like, all right, man,
smile and look good.
Tell me about this thing that you do, or what you believe in, or what you want to sell, and they're just like, they got nothing, right? And I think as things grow, people are gonna start seeing that.
Oh, for sure.
It's gonna kind of chop the industry down a lot, right? Because no one wants to work with models anymore. They want to work with people that are experts. I think the biggest thing is experts need to learn how to become influencers, and influencers need to become experts at something.
For sure.
And
That's a good way to put it.
Right now, like all you have is people spitting stuff out loud, saying stuff that other people said, and coaches coaching coaches on coaching how to coach coaches to coach coaches type of stuff, and everyone's just doing the same thing. And I think it's the people that do, like you said, the complete opposite and go, listen, I'm about this is who I talk to, this is who I don't want to talk to, and having actual like anti-fans, so to speak, and just haters or trolls or whatever, like getting those people to not like you is just as important, because it'll create all people that will like you, right?
Absolutely.
If you want to be liked by everyone, you will be loved by no one.
Exactly. No, that's a good point.
Yeah,
no, I think that's really spot on. Whenever when I'm putting out, I used to have a different mindset about this, but I totally am on the same page with you. If I'm putting out content, it's something that I really like or are really interested in, and I think that too. I'm like, okay, if I turn off half the people and they all follow me and don't want to have anything to do with me, I'm okay with that, because I know that I'm attracting the right people. It's like any relationship in life. You want to attract the right people, not just people. You don't want a bunch of yes men around that just say great idea, but they don't, And it's okay to have less. I think that's one of the things. Like as influencers grow their influence, they need to be okay with, I guess, the growth of a certain amount of people rather than like huge numbers for vanity, right? Because a huge part of being an influencer is just honestly vanity metrics. Like I have this many people or whatever, but like if you're not making a change or producing actual profit from these things, all you have is like a fake scorecard. For sure, and I think people get really obsessed with the numbers, and it's just, as we talked about, it's sometimes less is more there. Also, the other thing on that note is that I think that they sometimes, I've seen people give up because like they didn't feel like they were making a profit enough. And it's interesting because I totally get that. There are times where you absolutely have to, you've got this, you need to make this to survive, you gotta do that survival thing. But it also gets to a point where, especially when you're building a brand, I'm sure you would agree with this, there's gonna be a time where you gotta invest. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna invest to build something, right? There's not going to be there are times in business where you're not going to be a positive ROI, but if you're building a brand, The Rock, if you look at someone like The Rock, he's constantly reinvesting into his brand. All these really big superstars that we're seeing now are constantly reinvesting into the brand, but they're not looking at it as like, okay, I spent this, but I didn't make this, so I'm just going to give up on social media. It's like, well, you have to invest to get there.
Yeah, so like you and I both have agencies, and they both do different things, and we have agency clients and stuff like that, and it's exactly that. For people that are coming in wanting to work with influencers, they want to see an immediate ROI, and they can't. They shouldn't have to, you know what I mean? Because it's more so like you're selling the campaign through people and the whole thing, and then you have influencers that just want to say, now I want to make money from being an influencer, which I think now is actually the hardest time to be an influencer, or to be. It's easy in the sense of, sure, anybody can do it. All you got to do is pull out your phone and start producing content. But what kind of content are you producing? What is the goal? Where is this going? What's going on with the funnels? How are you distributing your content? Because creation is one thing, but amplification is a whole different thing.
Oh, for sure.
Being able to grow the way that you guys did, sure, you made a lot of content, but like it was all amplification. As you've grown Influencive, it's been through amplification. What are some of the big things that you did, or things that you recommend people do now? Because making content's easy, but getting it out there to the right people is kind of a science.
Well, I think the thing is people look at it too literally sometimes, too direct. Where for me, building Influencive initially lost a lot of money, but my agency was growing phenomenally. So people said, how do you, okay, you're building this site, you're investing into a lot of like editors and amplification and ads and things like that to grow it. It can be really tricky to make money off page views and ads, for example. It's very hard. You need to first of all have a ridiculous amount of page views to get the premium rates, as you know. And just getting the right relationships there can be tricky, and getting to the right programs and all that kind of stuff. And they want to pay you net 90, and it's hard cash flow wise, all that kind of stuff. So I think my advice if you're growing something like that is don't look at it in a linear way. Like, okay, I'm going to build a site, I'm going to spend this, I need to make this in ads. Look at kind of peripheral vision. It's like, okay, I can look over here and I'm building this site, but some people the problem that I find with what's being amplified in messaging today is like focus is very important, but not to the point where you're blind. Right, you want to focus on what you're building, but be aware. Like if some great opportunity comes up, I'm building Influencive, but I'm just getting so much demand for these agency deals. So what am I going to do? Am I going to focus on Influencive and just keep building it just to build it, or am I going to keep building it but allow myself to monetize it indirectly through this agency? And that's exactly what I did. So just by having that sort of peripheral vision and being able to not be so, because I think what happens is people say, I'm going to build it this way. And they refuse to compromise, which can be good at times. Yeah. But it also can be bad because you're not looking around and going, oh, there's a golden opportunity sitting right in my living room, right next to me that I could just do it this way. Right. So I think that first thing there is that just not, people are in many cases trying to monetize something just too directly, but they're not taking in like a broader picture or thinking about, okay, what could work in synergy with what I'm doing.
How would you say that you can do that with and still keep a focus, right? Because a lot of people, there's two schools of thoughts. I'm with yours, right? And the reality is that most entrepreneurs, influencers that are growing more become accidental entrepreneurs. And one of the big things that they need to be careful on doing and balancing is having focus and doing their thing, but having that vision, right? Because they could be like, hey, this is making me $5,000 a month, but man, over here I'm getting 10,000 a month just for this one thing. And being able to kind of do both, but not lose focus, and then go, oh, but one thing, I got this one off, and now you're doing, hey, I started 14 different things, and now none of them are working.
Right. I think it's tricky for sure. I think listening is a big one. I think, especially we can be our own worst enemies. I think and we've both done masterminds and things like that where we're getting other experts and people around us that are smarter than us and admitting, hey, I don't know everything. I know what I know, but I don't know everything, so I'm going to ask you what you're good at. And really listening to what's going on and to get advice from other top-level people. I think that was always an easy way for me to kind of to figure some things out that I wasn't, as good in. But, especially with like social media, for example, you'll see people that, I have friends that a particular friend, I won't mention his name, but he has got a big following, and for the longest time people were DMing him, asking him for a certain type of merchandise, like merch. And no, I don't want to do merch, not going to do merch. But after a while it was like, all right, so if we added up all these people that would have spent these $25 at this point, I understand there's certain cases where you don't want to do that for some reason, for branding or whatever, but at the same time it's like, if you're struggling that much, but there's just this thing right there that in many ways, like look at some of the biggest brands in the world, merchandise, right? Like Nike or something. Like people are walking billboards for Nike because they've found a way to get people to want to wear their stuff, or whatever brand. So something like that where it's going to help you instead of hurt you in many ways, as long as the merchandise is good and people want it, should be something you want to incorporate, especially if you're literally getting people asking you for something that doesn't even exist. That's probably a good sign in most cases. So I think being able to see those situations and go, okay, this, evaluate the opportunity and make a decision sometimes.
So with all that happening, and like you said, merch is a really good one. Merch and just influencers being able to kind of build brands now. Where do you see that, like, how do you see that evolving? Do you think that everyone is almost like the self-made entrepreneur now, and like people will take less jobs and there'll be all this more influencive stuff, and there'll be more just random brands instead of bigger Under Armours or whatever? Or do you think they're going to start scooping it and making private lines? Like, where do you see all that?
I think there's always a tipping point with everything. I think you get to a boiling point where it's kind of, something becomes so saturated that you're like, all right, we've got 8 million influencers now in the world, and it's like, so everyone's an influencer, so it's like it kind of pushes that next line of evolution. Like, what's the next thing from there? Does it go the opposite direction? Nobody wants followers anymore. You want to be private, and you want to do something else, So I don't think we're there yet, but I think we totally could get to that point where it's like complete saturation in particular spaces like that.
Do you think we're in a bubble?
Probably not quite yet. I mean, there's probably a social media bubble going on in many ways.
Especially in Venice.
Yeah.
Definitely.
In certain areas, for sure. Oh yeah, like even like take an LA or New York or something, or wherever there'd be a concentration of those people, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like worldwide, probably not. But it could definitely get to that point where like everybody's built this gigantuan following, and it's like, all right, we're all in for influencers now.
Yeah.
There would have to be another tier of something to really make it sustainable, really.
Yeah.
So
what are you working on right now that you're super excited about?
ShipChain's a big one, but even beyond ShipChain, just the blockchain space in general is really excited me, and that does go parallel with cryptocurrency, but it is a different thing. Blockchain, as people may or may not know, is the technology. Cryptocurrency is literally the currency that powers some of the technology. So that's been an exciting space to see. I actually had a friend in college, this is back in 2011, I want to say, that I lived with at one point after college, and he was mining Bitcoin in the room next to me, and they were like 2 cents a ton. And he's just mining away. He's like, you should probably like get some or something. And he's like, I think it could be big at one point. So I had like, I think it was about 150 Bitcoin on a thumb drive back when it was a .dat file on a thumb drive. That was the only way to use them. And I moved 8-9 times now between Boston and LA, lost the thumb drive. So it's in a landfill somewhere. So that's like, at this point, that's close to $1 million. Or a lot of money was on the drive, yeah. Or well, it was less than $1 million, but it was a lot, yeah. At one point, it was almost $1 million. So,
it was easily almost.
Yeah.
Oh, probably $1 million.
Yeah,
easily $1 million at one point.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
So it's always been on my radar. So then when I heard about Ethereum, which is like the next kind of evolution of that in many ways, which has gotten a lot of press and traction over the last year, I was like, okay, not missing it this time. So I was really, and it wasn't even so much from like a monetary or making money standpoint. It was just pure fascination with what the technology was doing. And wow, you can have this immutable ledger online that you can't change, that it's almost like a torrent file that's spread amongst all these people that can't be changed from one central party. And I think I really hope we're going to see a lot of change, like in like, anything from like voting, something that like you want to be like rock solid, unhackable, stuff like that. Just the technology in general that could be improved through it.
What do you see ShipChain in 2019?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting. That freight and logistics is arguably the largest industry in the world.
Yeah.
Revenue-wise and other things, but so it's in a really large space. The trick is adoption, but it's as the product is being finished probably by January. So we're still kind of in the building phase.
You've got some big players on your team. What's the goal with you guys in ShipChain? Is it to try to get acquired? Is it to try to just get it out to market?
Get it out to market and just get as many big companies using it as possible. Like a Walmart, for example, we'd love to have someone like that using it. Like trucking in the U.S., but then also the intermodal freight, which is like shipping a boat and then getting onto a train and a truck, just kind of tracking the containers all around.
Is there any way that the people watching can get involved?
Just check it out, shipchain.io, and if you work at a company that does trucking, ships anything, there's definitely a way to work with us. So check it out, the site, yeah.
Well, dude, I think that's it. I think we've kind of like knocked out all the majority of things that we wanted to talk about with influencer stuff. Any last words? Anything else?
No, nothing really. I mean, I think one quick piece of advice for influencers is that I think one thing is a lot of influencers they're looking at all these crazy systems and things to how do I figure out how to be good on social media and get a lot of followers and do this. The really stupid, simple piece of advice is like be a good person, because if you're meeting people and you're an asshole or you're not somebody that anyone wants to be around and you're like rude to people, and like I've had meetings with like people with 10 million followers and big huge accounts and they're like disrespectful to a waitress. Yeah. And you're like, come on, like why do you have to do that? Now I don't like you. Now I don't want to work with you. So like just the stupid simple advice of being a good person in all situations and being somebody you want to be around too. It's like don't be like something that you can't, like repels, disgusts you. So just something like that, it's always on my mind, because I'm like, whenever I see it, I'm like, man, you're rooting something great here. So
Dude, I could not agree more. Like you should not get the vanity metrics because you have a bunch of followers.
Yeah.
If anything, you should be excited and try to make the followers like something that you can make an impact on.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. All right, well, thanks for coming, man.
Cool, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it for us today, and we will see you guys on another episode of Influence Engine.